All right, welcoming to Patriots Corner podcast. We have adventurer, explorer, Christian Griffith. Christian, what's going on?
Hey man, what's happening? How are you?
Good, doing well, doing great. I was actually just I was listening to some Panama by Van Halen. You a Van Halen fan?
I'm a Van Halen fan, man. I'm old school, dude. I'm 46 years old.
Oh, 46 years young. 46 years young, man. I watched you on the
That's
show. You
right.
were a beast.
That's right. You're preaching to the choir. 46 years young.
Oh, great. Well, hey, I wanted to first off say thank you for being on the show today. How you doing? How's everything been post show?
Man, it's been great. It's really opened up a whole new world for me. I thought it was cool, and I thought it would be cool, and of course, I was really hoping that people would like it. But I never ever dreamed of just the amount of people that have reached out to me, the number of people that were inspired, the number of people that were motivated, especially the over 40 crowd who really took inspiration from it as a way to, kind of make some changes in their lives and become a little bit more creative.
Yeah. Now, you know, I feel as if when I was watching you going through the show, the scene opened up. I remember it was Instructor Kuntz. There was a scene in the series where he was just looking at you. He was giving you the up down, and these guys, they really instantly. I feel like they kind of knew that you had kind of not an edge, a bad thing, but I feel like they kind of knew that you were going to go all the way.
Well, I don't actually know. I don't know if that's the case. Knowing what the exact scene you're talking about, it was very early on, and I know that when it was over, my girlfriend Lindsay had driven down from Sacramento, and we had spent some time talking to Bert Koontz, and he had told her that they were actually gunning for me early on. I can be a bit cocky. I'm very showboaty on social media, and I expose a lot of my life. I'm very candid, very open, and I think they kind of had it in them at first that we're gonna take this hippie and bury him, right? And he had expressed to her that it was after some time when he recognized sort of my interest in being a team player, wanting to lead folks, having an interest in other folks doing well as well. I think that that kind of turned him around.
Yeah. Now, before we continue more about the show, because I really do want to speak later on about the show, because it was so amazing watching you. You did a
Thank you.
fantastic job. First off, I got to tell you, it was amazing, and I supported you. I rooted for you the entire time. Me and my father, we watched the show together, and you did a fantastic job. You have an amazing story. I mean, I remember watching you share your bio, and you lived in Nicaragua for a little. I don't know if I said it correct. Nicaragua for a little while, right?
Yeah, it's Nicaragua. It's the country just in Central America that borders Costa Rica to the north.
Now, what were you doing there? What made you decide to leave the states, or were you weren't born in Nicaragua, were you? Or
No, I've been going to Nicaragua for about 6 years. I do a run. Well, I used to do a 100-kilometer race there called Fuego y Agua, which was on Isla de Ometepe, which is a volcanic island in Lake Nicaragua. One of my favorite races ever. It's incredibly dramatic. It's jungle race on very, very difficult trails. It's one of the most difficult runs I've ever done. Then they've kind of upped the ante and they created something called Survival Run. In the last couple of years, I've been going there for Survival Run, which is pretty much the same kind of thing. You're covering 50 to 60 miles of distance, but you also have these quote unquote obstacle challenges but they're much more difficult than like a Spartan or a Tough Mudder. The obstacle challenges are based on the indigenous nature of the people. And so I've been going there for a while, and I just kind of, I'm a big believer in people and experiences over money, and I'm a big believer in relationships. And I formed some relationships with some people who knew what I did as far as digital strategy, internet communications, web stuff. And they reached out to me and asked if I'd be willing to help them with their wellness resort. And to me, it was a no-brainer. It was, they were giving me a place to stay. I had a tree house up in the jungle overlooking my own bay with great surf.
Wow, what
It
was the
was fun.
treehouse like? Was it like a Swiss Family Robinson kind of treehouse, or?
You know, it really was because it was a wellness resort and sustainability was very important to them and not disrupting the ecology. So, you know, I spent a lot of my mornings. I used to showcase a little monkey friend of mine that would come down every morning from the trees. I named him Raphael, and he would bring his family down, his wife, his two kids, and they would sit on the branches with me while I drank coffee in the morning. Um,
Raphael.
yeah,
Wow, I'm sure he
Raphael.
misses you.
Yeah, I think he does. You know, one morning, I didn't get up as early as I normally do, and he sat outside my window screaming at me until I did get up. So, yeah, he's a finicky guy.
Now, had you ever been over? Have you ever left the states to go to, an area such as Nicaragua, where the jungles are so thick? They could be dangerous at times. What was that like? What was the first experience like? Saying when Raphael brought his family down to join you for a morning cup of coffee.
Well, at that point in time, I had gotten, you know, like this was just earlier this year, so I've gotten pretty accustomed to the jungle. But I will tell you that, you know, I've also had negative experiences there. I contracted an amoeba there in 2012 that almost killed me, and was really was the introduction to television for me as I did Monsters Inside Me, the show on Animal Planet. The amoeba that I had contracted was so rare and so unique and so deadly that they came and did a story on me once I was quote unquote healed. I mean, I'll never be totally healed, but yeah. So yeah, the dangers are there, right? But I didn't allow it to beat me. You know, I had to go back the next year, and I had to do that because, you know, just for my own strength and well-being and self-esteem, and it's just the way I'm built, right? Like, you try to knock me down, I'm just going to come back harder.
Exactly. And I remember watching you explain what you had contracted, that flesh-eating disease. How did that get contracted? The most I guess, graphic, gruesome way of describing it. How did that all happen? Because I know that that's one thing when you leave the States is that usually they make sure to tell you to avoid this and that, but I guess it comes down to you're in situations at times where you really can't. You're in the thick of it, literally. So how did that get contracted?
So they believe that most likely Entamoeba histolytica can be contracted through water. Now, I was pretty much everywhere else that the American athletes were. So, you know, I didn't really do anything different than everyone else. The only thing that I can pinpoint it on is that about 40 miles into the race that I was doing, it was midday, tropical sun. It was beating me down. I was low on calories. I was low on water. Wasn't in my most, we call it ultra brain, right? Ultra marathon brain. But I wasn't at my smartest moment. I picked a mango up off the ground because I thought it would be an option for calories. Started to eat it, was kind of just walking down this dusty road, and realized that it was rotten and there were a bunch of bugs in it, and it was gross, right? And I threw it down, but I think that most likely was the cause, was most likely the way that I got the amoeba in my system. Now, people get amoebas in their system all the time, and the body flushes them out. It's just in this particular case, it attached to my liver and started to liquefy it.
Wow. So let's jump back just real quick because that had to be that had to have your heart start racing immediately when you bit into that mango and you saw that it was infected and that there was bugs in it. What was going through your head there? One, were you by yourself? First off, because that would make me start freaking out already. That would be really really nerve wracking. So I could only imagine what you were thinking because this is something that I guess nobody wants to be. This is something that I guess you think of maybe before you even go over to a country like that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly it. I was alone at that moment in the race. I quite honestly do a lot of bonehead things and a lot of like dramatic and hairy situations. And I've had a lot of kind of scary things happen to me overseas. And I think that at that moment when I realized I was so shot out, I was so tired. At that moment, I just kind of threw it down and was disgusted with the fact that I did it. and discuss it with the fact that it wasn't going to be an option for calories for me at that particular moment.
I would think
But
not. Yeah. Oh
but
wow.
I can one thing that I attribute it to is, there are times when you know that you've eaten something that didn't agree with you, and you knew right away, and maybe you finished it or maybe you quit eating it, but you knew something wasn't right, and then sure enough that night you end up getting some sort of gastro situation, right? Either coming out of your mouth or other directions, uh, and I kind of equated to that. I knew it was a bad move. I didn't know what the outcome would be. After a few hours of not having an immediate outcome, I kind of thought I was okay. But as soon as I was diagnosed with intimated histolytic, it was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah. Wow. And is that just something where you knew you were automatically going to push through it? Like, did it really start to consume your life, consume your thoughts, or was it kind of like how you just said? I mean, you said you're doing bonehead things, or for example, I mean, you're just the ultimate badass dude. I gotta say it. You're the ultimate badass. There's no doubt about that. You, I'm sitting here in the station right now, and you're telling me this, and I can't even relate whatsoever. I mean, I think the worst thing that I've had happen to me is I got diagnosed with celiac disease, which sucks. But I mean, other than that, moving forward, did you always want to, get into adventuring and kind of exploration? I mean, let alone you're doing these obstacle course races, you're still, you got this adventureness about you, this explorer, personality from what I've seen on television. Did you always want to do that ever since you were a young kid?
Yeah, I think that, even as a kid, like I used to run off into the woods and build forts. That was a big thing for me, is build a fort and then just sit in it, right? And
Yeah.
just build a fort and sit in it.
I've been there, yeah.
Climbing trees, being outside. I mean, I was a kid of the 70s and 80s, so there was a lot of playing outside. We had a game called Kick the Can that we played till dark. Just I was very much an outside kid, and I love to surf, and I love to be at the ocean. I love to be at the beach. I love to ride my bike, skateboards. I was always kind of rough and tumble. Anyway, I've had 6 concussions in my life, so I've
Wow.
always been kind of a goofball, kind of a crazy guy, kind of like, oh, Christian will try that. I'll jump off the rock into the water without knowing what's below. That kind of stuff. So sometimes that comes back to bite me in the butt, but yeah, man. I mean, I've always been that way, and then I think when you add on the other element of very ADHD, and my ex-wife used to always say to me, you never are satisfied with completing a goal or a task. It's like as soon as you complete it, you're on to the next thing, right? So I'm
Yeah.
always looking for the bigger, the greater challenge, the more gnarly adventure, the higher level of danger.
Of course. And I mean, and look where it brought you. I mean, the selection. Was that something? How did you get involved in that? Because that, you know, I interviewed Ryan. I had Ryan on the show last week, and we were talking a little bit about the process of getting involved with the selection, and his story was he said he came from a race and instantly flew to the site where they were filming. But how did you get involved in that, and what was the feeling like when you found out that your application was going through, that you were now about to enter into pain? I guess it's the only way to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I didn't look at it that way. So the way I got into it is I have a company called Obstacle Racing Media.
Okay.
I'm co-founder of Obstacle Racing Media. My founding partner actually runs it, Matt B. Davis. He also has a podcast. It's somewhat popular in the obstacle world. And there's a competing publication called Mud Run Guide. And kind of a famous Spartan female who's been around for years, her name's Margaret Schlechter. She sent me the application, and she said, I know you do all this GoRuck stuff, which is another event company patterned after Special Forces Assessment Training.
Okay.
And she said, I think you'd be perfect for this. So I, kind of briefly told my story and why I wanted to do it. They called me immediately. We had a few Skype interviews. I had a few Skype interviews with the casting company. Once we were in LA, they flew us to LA. They flew like 40 of us to LA, and we met with the executives at History, and then we got tested on a bunch of, physical standards. Could we meet Special Forces selection standards as they really are today, from a physical perspective? And then they also gave us some psych testing and medical testing, and then you found out a couple of days later whether or not you were one of the 30 to go on the selection. And when I did find out that I was elated, dude. I wasn't scared. I knew I was going into a beatdown, but it's nothing new to me. Beatdown is nothing new to me. And as someone who's run a large number of 50 and 100-mile races, I know what it takes, right, to get through the seemingly impossible. So I wasn't too afraid of that. I just mostly was, if I was afraid of anything, I was afraid of being the oldest dude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember they were touching on that a lot, and you just kept pushing, man. You just kept going through and fighting the pain, and it seemed like nothing ever bothered you, and that was the coolest thing, because I felt like I was, that the younger people who were there kind of looked at you, or could have looked at you, as like a father figure. You really were the motivator. And did you feel that you needed to grab on to be the motivator, or have you always just been the motivator all throughout your life? Just a positive attitude.
Well, I think it's more organic because I've never really had any kind of formal leadership training, but I do care a lot about people. And my grandmother, who was really my mother in my life growing up, kind of gave me the gift of gab. She's an old Southern woman who just would talk to anyone. She'd go into the grocery store. By the time she left, people would be waving to her, right? Cashiers would be like, bye, and she just kind of, not directly but indirectly, taught me the value and the things that can happen to you when you just take an interest in people. And I found myself very early on taking an interest in everyone because, think about it, the casting company's job was to find 40 really interesting people and put them in one place. So, I'm around all these people with very interesting stories from extremely varied backgrounds, and I just found it very interesting and fun and cool to take an interest in these folks. And I think that a lot of times, some of them would be a little standoffish at first. Quite honestly, Ryan and I are tight now, right? Of course, we finished together. But, first off, I thought, man, this guy's kind of a jerk, man. He's walking around, his head's super high. He's a Spartan pro. He's not really talking to anyone. You could tell he's got this arrogance, like, I will whoop everyone. And he did whoop everyone. But, it was really interesting to watch him as a younger guy, to watch him go from that migration of watching him go from this cocky, I'm going to kill everyone kind of mentality to, oh my God, I need these guys. I will not get through this without my brothers. And that's just, I feel like that's what the military tries to instill in people. I feel like leadership, team building, all of that. That's the ultimate goal of that. And he was a shining example of it.
Yeah, of course. And one thing that I picked up on, and I know I keep reiterating and saying it, is that, in every segment, you showed so much support to everyone. You were such a motivator from when you guys were swimming in the ocean. I remember you saying, let the sun hit you. Let it hit you. Let it warm your body up. There was never any negativity. And if there was, you never ever let it showed. And that's what I had so much respect for, because you gave, the country and the viewers the right to believe that you were going through, which you did. You never stopped. You never stopped pushing.
Well, thank you. I love hearing that. And if anything, what that does is, you saying that to me, what that does is it just validates for me what I've learned along the way. And what I've learned along the way is, when I focus on others, whether it's in a situation of pain, a situation of emergency, whatever the case may be, when I focus on others and focus less on myself, it takes away any of the like dramatic fear or dramatic any other emotion that I might have or I might get consumed with myself, which would cause me to either make poor decisions or to just be paralyzed and do nothing, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what I was trying to do. Don't think for a second I wasn't cold on that beach, dude. But I could either get in my own head and sit there and shiver to death, and just keep telling myself how cold I am and how am I going to get through this, or I could look around at my brothers and sisters and say, hey, I got some experience with the cold. Start taking some deep breaths, start trying to stop shivering, try to focus on happy or alternative things, which in this particular case was the sun. Think of the sun warming your body. Just try to get to a better place. And by me focusing on them, it allowed me not to focus so much on my own misery. And if you'll notice, I was really the only one not shivering. And I truly believe it was because I was focused on others.
Yeah. And I feel like, excuse me, I feel like it's what these, the special operators, they try to instill, really try to, inspire, I guess, not maybe inspire people, but, to really instill in somebody's brain, embrace the suck. You know that the only way out is quitting, and you're not going to quit. So why continue to, you're feeling pain, but how you just said, you were the only one not shivering, and you were focusing on the sun. And that focus gave you, kind of like, was it like a boxed in focus where you were, nothing else was really seeming to affect you?
There were two things that were going through my brain. Both of them are things I chant to myself in a 100-mile race. And that is, everything is temporary, right? The only thing that's not is quitting. Quitting is permanent. Quitting, I have a patch on my neck right here behind me right now that says quitting is forever. And I took that patch with me to the selection because I wanted to make sure that I constantly remembered that. If I was going to quit, there was no turning back from that. That would be me till the day I die, right?
Yeah.
And I had told myself I will never ever quit. Also, another thing that I was telling myself was, pain is inevitable. In this particular situation, pain is inevitable. They're gonna bring it. That's the goal. They're gonna bring the pain. But suffering was optional.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
And I was just about to ask, they're going to bring the pain. What was it like the first time that you got the chance to see and meet these instructors? One thing that they're just so intense, these guys. And really they do it for a purpose, and they have and the reason that they do it is to just keep motivating you guys to continue to carry on this hard work ethic. I remember you guys got woken up. Ray Care woke you guys up in the middle of the night with the big bullhorn, and I remember him screaming at you, "What are you doing, tight shorts? What are you doing, tight shorts?" I mean, it was just like, was it just like confusing? I mean, what was going through your head?
Yeah, I mean that wasn't just Care though. That was all of them. That was all the instructors.
Oh yeah, of course.
Them,
I was just highlighting that. That was like one of it was like a comedy bit almost, but like at the same, it was comical. Like I don't know if it would make you smirk or if you was just confused, or I had no idea what would be going on in your head at that point in time.
Well, it made one guy drop instantly. Like he dropped right. It was so much chaos that he couldn't even get a thought together. He like that ran into the wall. Like it just shocked him so much. And I think that, it really is going to depend on the kind of person that you are, as to how you're going to react to something like that. But for me, it was like, and I'm sure my age and somewhat wisdom played a part in this, but I'm like, look, these guys have a job to do. They have a role. Their role is to intimidate us. I'm going to allow them to go through their role, and I'm not going to challenge them, and I'm not going to I'm not going to go against them in any way. I'm going to let them do their thing, and I'm just going to roll with the punches, man. I'm just going to roll with it. As absurd as it sounds, like when the torture scenes were happening, it sometimes it seemed like I don't understand the purpose of this. And in fact, I think they even got a soundbite on me when I was locked in that box, and I said, I don't know anything what's going on. This is just a beatdown, right? Because we were by the torture part, we were supposed to be past what they call the shark attack. When we first met those instructors, when they first walked up to us, they immediately started the shark attack, which is they just get in your face and start screaming, tell you to get down, get up, get down, get on your back, get on your belly, get up, get down. They tell you to do something, they tell you you're doing it wrong, but you really did it right, but they still say it's wrong. They're just trying to frustrate you to no end.
Yeah, right? And it just carries on and keeps going.
Yeah, they just want to weed out the people that are just going to break really easy. And, so that was just, I understood it. I never would smirk, though, I promise you that. I knew better than that. Anytime you show cockiness, number 6, Dylan, who I like very much, but unfortunately, there were times where, he would show a level of cockiness that, the instructors picked up on right away, and they just chewed on it. Any weakness they saw, they would take that weakness and they would just beat it to death.
Yeah. Now, when I know you had a special connection, especially to the show, and it's another reason I idolize you completely is because you have so much support for the military and for what these guys do, as I do myself as well. Listening to you speak during the interrogation scene, I remember you saying about your grandfather. He's one of your, if not the biggest role model in your life, and he has a really wild and very heroic military past, and you wanted to get a little bit of a taste of what he might have went through back in boot camp, right?
Yeah, because he doesn't, and even beyond boot camp, because, first and foremost, just to make sure that I really comment, like, the role model in my life, be 1/4 of a man that he is, I would consider my life a success. That's how much I revere my grandfather. But he's 93 years old, still swims 12 laps a day, still drives, but he was a P-51 fighter pilot, flew one of the Mustangs in the Flying Tiger group.
Wow.
And, just a very elite guy. Unfortunately, though, he doesn't like all he will ever say is war stinks. That's all he'll ever say. He doesn't ever want to tell you about this kill or that kill. Or, he'll tell you about different places he's been, but he really doesn't like to give any detail about anything. It scarred him so much. He was a fighter.
Yeah, of course.
He didn't get on another airplane for probably 50 years after that.
Wow.
And, so there's weird stuff going on up there that I'm dying to know about. And sure, me going through the show isn't even a 0.001% of what he went through. But at least it gave me some sort of understanding of, he did used to tell me things like, you do whatever you want, or they put it away for you, and when you came in for the next meal, they bring it back out to you until you ate it all, right? Like, he would just tell me these stories about discipline and honor and integrity, and those were the things that I wanted to experience, right? Like, just the opportunity to put together better building blocks for me as a man.
Yeah.
Right? You don't learn life 101. You go to school and you learn all of these different subjects and stuff like that, but nobody ever teaches you life 101. Nobody teaches you integrity. No one teaches you leadership. It's not till later on in your life that those things you start to recognize, if you're smart enough, to start to recognize that those things are valuable in your career and life and family and all of that. But a lot of times people miss out on that, and I really wanted to experience that.
And that's one thing that I personally I feel that has been kind of lost in the country with just evolution and things changing. Because I do remember when I did do podcast episode 3 with Ray Care. Ray, who is an inspiration, mentioned that, the World War II guys, these guys were the American badasses. They were, dealing with weapons and items that weren't as advanced, obviously, as what they have now. And, it's almost as if the country kind of gets a little lazy. You know what I mean? And I feel like that, how you were saying, integrity and what you are taught in school, and it's not as comparable as to what I guess I'm trying to say the man would have been like back in the day, where there was almost more of a mental toughness.
And I agree with you, and it's such an interesting discussion to have because, that I understand progress and political correctness and all of these various things, but one of the things that taught me more than anything during that show, and they didn't really hit on it real hard, but it was when we were taught hand-to-hand combat training, and then we were made to fight each other. And you would think that would be difficult or hard for us, but it really brought all of us together so much more as a team, having that experience of really getting our own, shoving each other's face in the sand, right? Like, it was, I don't know if it's a boys will be boys thing. I don't know exactly how you qualify that or quantify what that really truly means, but it's a bonding experience like no other. And, they've kind of, the culture has taken that away. Whatever happened to the old school fist fight? Now it's weapons and guns, and somebody gets whatever happened to just, the playground brawl? You knock
Yeah,
the
I
guy in the
agree.
face, he knocks you in the face, and you guys become friends. You learn something out of the experience. No blood, no foul.
I agree, and that's the biggest thing that my grandfather was a veteran as well, and I've heard story after story about just growing up in that different type of time, and how what we're seeing now, and I wouldn't even want to get political based, but but like you were saying, what did happen to that evolution, and where did this old school, because the old school is, and I'm 21 years old, but I am somebody who wishes, and when I tell you wishes, I'm being serious, grew up in the old school, because I listen to the music. Two, you guys had it rougher. You had it rougher, and look where you're at now. You're mentally, strong, tough, and that's where I feel that one, what you guys went through on the selection, what the instructors went through in real life when they were at Buds or Ranger School or some form of boot camp. That training and that ethic and moral that they instill, it's all for purpose. And look at what it does. It works. It works all the time. Or for majority of the time. And do you feel that, that's something that more people should, in today's age, have to experience, or not have to, but should want to? I just feel like everything really has kind of dwindled. Change is so powerful, and it's happened so much in society.
I do, and it's weird. I don't certainly, it's necessarily for everyone, but I think that the experience itself changed me profoundly as a man. Every interview I do, it's important that people know that the entire experience changed me as a man, right? Completely. And I think that that you can have something like that can have that much impact on someone, certainly it makes sense. It makes logical sense that everyone should go through something, even if it's at a lower scale, but something that has that same potential to change them as a person. Because, without that, you just kind of coast through life, and you don't have these experiences and these dramatic things to pull from that, that frame your decision making, your leadership, your ability to inspire, your ability to be calm under stress, there's just so many different things that experiences like this teach you. Yeah, I agree. Would I ever say that everyone should go through boot camp? Like forced, forced to do it? No, I don't. I think it should be a choice, but I do believe that more parents or more people in an authoritative decision-making role should encourage this kind of thing more instead of dumbing it down, right? Instead of, giving people options of doing other things, but only because, it might be too hard, or Johnny might cry, or Johnny might get cut, and then, the parents are going to get sued, or the insurance company's going to get sued, so they won't back a camp or something like this. It's that kind of thing that kind of ruins it, right? It's like,
Yeah, exactly. There's too much in today's society, in my opinion. There's way too much weakness instilled. It is what it is, and it's exactly what you're saying too. It's just more. I grew up with a really supportive family, but a tough father. My dad is he's always motivating to push forward, and life's never going to be perfect. Look what happened to you. You made the mistake of eating the mango in the jungle, and then look what happened. Though you kept pushing forward, you never stopped, and that's the sense I guess I feel that in society right now. There's way too much of this whole giving up kind of crap. It's not something that really should. It doesn't define America. It's not America in my opinion. At least.
Well, we are more and more and more. We're discouraged from fighting, but the definition of fighting is very broad, right? Certainly, we should be discouraged from fighting one another, right?
Yeah.
But fighting through difficult periods in life, and fighting through relationships, and fighting through challenges is very important. And I feel like that fight, that desire to fight, to give it your all, to push all your chips in. I feel like that just is so very important. It's just not taught. And I've been very lucky that I've had this selection experience, but also mentors in my past that have, driven this home for me.
Well, you know what, Christian, I want to tell you, thank you so much, first off, for being on Patriots Corner. This has been such a fantastic opportunity to speak with you and hear your journey. It was so amazing. You're such a motivator and inspiration all over the country, and Live for a Living. It's definitely, I think, something that everybody should check out. You have done such greatness with the help of others as well, and I just can't begin to thank you enough for being on the show and expressing how you feel and what you believe as far as mental toughness, physical toughness, and the will to never quit. It was such a great experience.
Well, thank you for giving me a platform to continue to share my story. It's always an honor for me, so thanks.
You're the man. Rock on. Thanks so much for everything, and have a great weekend.
You're welcome, brother. You too.
Take care.
Take care.
That was just Christian Griffith, number 11, seen on this selection. Wow, what an honor to speak with him. But, really, I just want to say thank you to Christian. Live for a Living, he's the owner of Live for a Living Company. He has done amazing things and traveled amazing paths, in the jungle, exploring through the jungle, racing through the jungle, overcoming obstacles all over, and spending some time and getting the chance to meet a monkey family, which was really cool too. I don't know. He's a cool guy. He's a really cool guy, and he's got an amazing story. And it was so great to listen to him share his story. So first off, if you have not seen the selection, definitely go and check it out and follow Christian Griffith. He was number 11. He did an amazing job, and he supported everybody. He was the ultimate badass through the entire TV show. So thank you so much for listening to Patriots Corner Podcast. We will be back next week. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone, and God bless America, and God bless the American Patriots. Take care.